In Korea, there is one of the most powerful special forces units, number 709. Not long ago, it hosted a traditional promotion ceremony, during which everyone had to fight each other until only one participant remained. However, this time only one person was able to cancel this tradition. As a result of the ceremony, all members of the unit were unable to continue serving, and the total time it took for the unit to fully recover was 448 weeks. After the incident, all members of the Special Forces unit submitted a report to their commander asking to be dismissed from service. In order to avoid losing so many very valuable employees, the command had to forcibly fire this fighter named John Kim, who had already become a legend. 3 years later, John Kim has moved to a civilian job, sitting in an office trying to work when suddenly a crumpled napkin flies into his face. The department head named Jeff asks John why he considers this company a hovel and dares to fall asleep on the job. John Kim apologizes and looks at the napkin, trying to figure out what his boss threw at him. Jeff tells John that these are the tissues he blows his nose into and orders him to throw them away for him since there is no trash can nearby. John can hardly contain himself and does not answer his boss, but decides to splash out his emotions and grabs his smartphone. Logging onto a social network, John types out a huge test about his boss throwing napkins at him and expressing ideas about creating a structure that fires or transfers employees whose activities are detrimental to the company. Having had his say and let off some steam, John exhales, wishing he could kill his boss since he was just a civilian. Suddenly, John receives a message on his phone saying that he, as a slave of capitalist society, is being given a chance. Suddenly, a red light appears on the left arm of John's glasses, and goosebumps run down the top of his head. An augmented reality interface appears in the lenses of John's glasses, indicating that his registration is complete. A mysterious voice begins to sound in John's head, informing him that his name in the system is P099, and the first test for him is beginning. John tries to take off his strange glasses, but the glasses shoot a small cable into John's temple, warning him that if he does not wear his glasses for more than 60 seconds, he will be electrocuted. John is perplexed about the reasons for what is happening, remembering that the company gave him these glasses a long time ago, and there was never anything strange about them, when suddenly his thoughts are interrupted by a female voice. A colleague named Arabella approaches John, looking at him with interest and saying that he doesn't look well. John tries to tell his colleague what is happening, but a voice in his head warns him that if he says even a word, he will also be electrocuted. John decides it's not worth the risk, so he says nothing bad happened to him, to which Arabella sincerely replies that she's glad to hear it, trying to suggest a date after work today. Suddenly, Jeff jumps into the conversation, asking what's going on and that he knows a suitable bar for private meetings. He adds that John will be working late again today, so Arabella can have a good evening only with him. According to Jeff, Arabella shouldn't pay attention to people who have to work overtime because of their incompetence. Arabella is not impressed by her boss's offer and leaves, saying that she thinks she'll go back to her job, leaving John and Jeff alone. John tries his best to restrain himself, wondering why his boss is behaving this way. Suddenly, a voice in John's head tells him that the mission creation algorithm has been successfully completed and asks him to analyze the people around him. John looks at his boss and the glasses start scanning, showing all his personal data, while he asks John questions and gets angry when they are not answered. Jeff continues to be angry, but John's attention is drawn to the glasses, which inform him that Department Chief Jeff has been selected as the mission target. The glasses inform John that his mission is to order his boss to stop swearing, adding that if he fails to do so, he will be punished. Jeff leaves, telling John to follow him while the protagonist tries to figure out what the hell is going on. The glasses begin the countdown to punishment as John runs through his head with ideas about where the glasses could have come from. The mission time expires, and John is informed that his loss rate is 50%. John tries to figure out what this message means and decides to check his personal bank account. Logging into his account, John discovers that his account balance has been halved in a matter of seconds. John loses his temper, slamming his hands on the table and shouting that everything that is happening is a circus, but decides to calm down and goes to the roof on the orders of his boss. After going out onto the roof with John, Jeff starts pointing his fingers at John and asking him if he's gone crazy. Jeff tells John that he hates people like him, believing that the protagonist avoids him not because he is afraid of him, but because he considers him disgusting. John says nothing, admitting to himself that he must remain silent in this situation, since he needs this job. Suddenly, the boss's bullying is interrupted by Arabella, who sweetly asks John if he is stupid. Arabella says that John must be very tired, working all day, adding that it is difficult to buy a house these days, even if you work until you are exhausted. Arabella says that John needs to know when to tell the world to go to hell, and shows the boss the tape recorder on which she recorded all his bullying. Jeff loses his temper and angrily asks Arabella what she's doing by trying to grab her with his hand. However, this time John decides not to stand aside and intercepts his boss's hand, preventing him from grabbing his colleague. Jeff becomes even more angry, demanding that John let him go immediately, cursing him even more. The glasses register Jeff's aggressive behavior and give John a new task, which requires him to hit his boss in the Adam's apple. Jeff breaks free and punches John in the face with all his might, saying that he will put him in his place now. John decides he's had enough and easily dodges, counterpunching his boss in the Adam's apple. Boss Jeff falls to the ground and John asks Arabella to act as if nothing happened. The points tell John that the mission has been completed, giving him back all the funds he lost from the previous failure. Jeff struggles to his feet, calling John names again and asking him how he dared to hit his boss. The glasses once again record Jeff's behavior, giving him a new task in which he is required to beat up his boss for a five-fold reward. Jeff loses his temper again and jumps on John, preparing to deliver a powerful punch. However, John easily dodges this amateurish attack and, quickly going behind Jeff, begins to strangle him. After a while, Jeff passes out from lack of oxygen, and John releases him, letting him fall face down on the floor. The glasses inform John that the task was successfully completed, and he is happy to see that his account now contains 170 million won. John recalls interviewing for the job recently while trying to live a normal life. However, after the glasses started giving him missions, his life changed dramatically. Having completed all the missions initially given to him, John increased his wealth to 580 million won. John goes out onto the roof to rejoice at how rich he is becoming. However, his joy is interrupted by a copter appearing out of nowhere, carrying a small case. The drone flies up to John and drops a black case to him, hovering in the air. John opens the case containing the golden ticket, while the drone informs him that his test has been passed. He adds that thanks to the ticket, John is now allowed into the main mission, and now he needs to raise 1 billion won in 1 week, or all his funds will be wiped out. John returns to his office, thinking that he needs another 40-20 million to complete the mission. John examines the golden ticket he received and notices that it says that this ticket allows you to get a loan of up to 100 million in one use. John thinks about the fact that, among other things, he lacks information about these glasses, after which he notices Jeff and decides to call out to him. Jeff freezes in horror at the sound of John's voice and does not react to it, continuing to stand in a stupor. John walks up to Jeff, saying he has a question, causing Jeff to let out a sharp cry of fear. John covers Jeff's mouth to stop him from screaming and asks him to calmly answer the question, after which he asks if he knows the origin of these glasses. Jeff replies that he knows nothing about these glasses, adding that he has never seen another pair like that on any other employee. John tries to figure out if his boss is lying, but his thoughts are interrupted by a message about a new mission. Delighted, John quickly gets dressed, saying that he will leave work early today and leaves cheerfully. Jonah comes to the appointed place, which is the roof of the building under construction, and looks around. The glasses inform John that the reward for completing the task is 300 million won, adding that the competition between the participants begins. Suddenly, the construction lights turn on, illuminating the case lying on the huge spool. John walks up to the case and looks at it, wondering how she got there. Opening the suitcase, the main character discovers that it is filled to the brim with money. The points announce the rules, which state that the winner is the one holding the bag at the end of the timer, which is 10 minutes. Suddenly, several bandits armed with bladed weapons come out from around the corner and tell John that he shouldn't have taken the bag so quickly. John looks around at his opponents, asking them if they are participants like him. The bandits laugh at John, asking him if he understands the situation he is in. However, the main character only smiles madly, asking them that in order to win, he just needs to beat them all up. The main bandit shouts at John that he is acting too arrogantly and attacks him. However, John, using the suitcase with money, easily blocks his attack. Laughing at the bandit's boasting, John delivers a strong blow to the bandit with his palm. The force of the blow sends the bandit flying, destroying all fragile objects with his body. John laughs, looking at the surprised faces of the other bandits, saying that everything looks even simpler than he thought. The bandits gather their thoughts and attack John from different sides at the same time, showing teamwork. John dodges the knife attacks, easily placing a strong and impenetrable case under the blows. Losing his temper from the unsuccessful blows, the bandit makes a sharp lunge forward, trying to pierce John. However, John blocks the attack, squeezing the blade with surgical precision using the suitcase handle. Having broken the blade of the knife, John brings the heavy suitcase down on the criminal's head with all his might, incapacitating him. John looks at the unconscious bandit, saying that they have greatly misjudged their chances. The protagonist turns to the other bandit, telling him that he has a couple of questions. John asks him who runs this game, to which he replies that he knows nothing, adding that he simply received a bracelet and became a participant. John ponders the reasons why only his mission-issuing device is shaped like glasses, while the bandit decides to attack him, taking advantage of the moment. However, the bandit doesn't have time to do anything, because John quickly approaches him and asks him if he wants to stab him with this pathetic little knife. Not receiving a clear answer, John also hits the bandit with a suitcase, knocking him out. Suddenly, John hears the screams of one of the bandits, whose bracelet informs him that 300 million has been written off from him, concluding that the participant is now bankrupt. The device reports that the bandit's debt has reached its maximum of 1 billion, adding that the debt collection procedure begins right now. The device on the bandit's hand activates, injecting some substance into the wearer's hand, indicating that an investigation into the P16 member's case has begun. The bandit's veins appear on his skin, turning purple, and with a trembling voice he begs John to help him. John is shocked by what he sees, remembering that his glasses apparently also have an injector that could kill him at any moment. Suddenly, two people with blue skin wearing strange masks appear behind him, one of whom says that the participants are no different. Two thugs tie up a bandit with chains and put him in a sack, saying that the participants in the game either become fabulously rich or lose everything. Left alone, John reflects on the fact that all participants, including himself, became victims of the thirst for profit, and all the previous missions were just bait. Suddenly, a whole crowd of 48 people comes to the construction site and decides to take the bag from John. The crowd surrounds John from all sides, preparing to attack, and he notices that it has become somehow too crowded. John takes a stance, preparing to attack, and tells his competitors to attack all at once. Delighted that he can finally stretch his legs, John easily distributes punches to all the participants using the suitcase. When hit, each member's money is deducted by 300 million won, causing them to fall into despair. The risk of losing such a huge amount of money from one blow stops all the participants, to which John only mockingly asks them why they do not want to attack him. The participants decide to attack from a distance, throwing rocks and other available materials at John. However, John easily deflects all the objects flying at him with his suitcase, only laughing at the pathetic attempts of his opponents. Once the participants run out of ammunition, John jumps on one of the leaders, swinging the suitcase. Having carried out a devastating attack, the protagonist incapacitates the leader, making him bankrupt. Some participants figure that even the fine for failing the mission won't be that big, and they run away from the competition venue together. However, the remaining participants have absolutely nothing to lose, so they take up cold weapons and decide to attack John as a crowd. The masked creatures watch as John beats the participants one by one with a suitcase, increasing the number of bankruptcies. After a short period of time, John is already finishing off the last participant, noticing that his suit is torn. Having won the competition and received a prize of 300 million, John concludes that he can simply buy himself a new one and walks away. A woman watches from afar, saying that this contestant won't last long, addressing her mysterious colleague. The colleague tells her that he agrees with her, adding that John is attracting too much attention without realizing the danger he is in. Meanwhile, John decides to spend the night at the expensive Seagull Hotel instead of his home, where one night in a luxury room costs 20 million. The main character is happy that he can finally afford a rich life and has an amount of money that he would not have earned in 10 years. The service staff enters the room and tells him that they have brought him the dish he ordered. John decides to try a special premium steak prepared by a 3-star Michelin chef. The girl's face changes as she asks John if he likes the dish he prepared. John breaks into a satisfied smile, reporting that the dish is incredibly delicious. The girl takes off her disguise, revealing herself to be the one who was following him at the construction site, and says that he is a completely reckless person. John looks at the girl with confusion and after an awkward pause greets her. The girl asks him why he is so careless, being a participant. Wondering to herself why John is not at all surprised by what happened, John replies that he noticed them from the very beginning, so he expected them to come, pointing to the second guest in his room. The mystery man turns out to be a gray-haired adult man who is a little surprised that John just let them get close despite knowing about them. John replies that he noticed them following him, but realized that they didn't look like they were going to harm him, adding that he wants some answers himself. The man says he understands John's desire to extract information from them, adding that he has something to ask him himself. The trio sits down at the table and the man asks John how he became a member. John replies that he became one after receiving the device and completing test missions, to which the man asks him where his bracelet is. John replies that there are no rules stating that the bracelet must be on the arm, deciding to withhold information about his glasses, causing the girl to sympathize with him, assuming that he wears it on his ankle. John says it's his turn to ask questions and asks the man if he knows how to remove the device. The man replies that the price the organization has set for his freedom is 2 billion won, and until that amount is paid, it is impossible to release him. John asks if the man means the operators of these devices by the organization, to which he receives an affirmative answer. The man explains to John that this organization is the creators of Hell and the owners of the Darknet, which uses tens of billions of illegal funds to organize terrible games. According to him, not a single participant has yet managed to regain their freedom. John asks the man why he is telling him all this, to which he replies that he wants to see what kind of person John is and what is more important to him in this life. John replies that he can simply buy his freedom by earning 10 billion won and leave himself enough money to live on until retirement. The man concludes from John's words that money is most important to him, and then asks about the reason why John is confident that he can always win. Without waiting for an answer, the man invites John to play a small game with him, sending him an invitation through his device. John says he is not a person who is afraid of such challenges and accepts the offers, but his analysis of his opponent makes him freeze in his tracks. Based on the data broadcast by his glasses, the person sitting in front of him was a rank 3 competitor named Walter Mo, who had 14 wins and only 1 loss with a net worth of 4 billion won. The glasses tell John that the game is starting and he no longer has the option to give up, to which he only reacts sarcastically. Walter Mo, with a slight smile, asks the device what kind of game he and John are about to play. John realizes he's in deep trouble and tries to ask Walter to wait and rescind the offer. However, Walter says that it is too late, and the roulette has started spinning, which will determine the random game. Roulette is a dice game, the rules of which state that each participant has 2 black and white dice, and the winner is the player with the highest score, which is either the product of the rolled values if they are the same, or the highest if they are different. The girl opens the case saying that each chip is worth 10 million won, adding that each player will be given 88 chips. Walter adds that the white dice are thrown immediately, after which the players place their bets, and then the glass is raised, revealing the black dice. John is surprised that this is just a game of chance, to which Walter Mo remarks that the protagonist is calm and therefore confident. John calmly agrees, but in his heart he screams with indignation, remembering that his whole life is the embodiment of bad luck. Suddenly, John realizes that despite everything, he made 880 million in 3 days, which means he is not so unlucky. After all the chips have been dealt and preparations have been completed, Walter Mo asks John if he is ready to start playing. John decides that he will turn his failure into a new opportunity and confidently throws the white dice. However, despite John's incredible self-esteem and confidence, he gets a traitorous unit. Walter also only got a 2 on his first throw, so he looks at her thoughtfully, going over the options in his head. After careful consideration, Walter bets 100 million, surprising John. Having weighed his chances and realizing that he has nowhere to retreat, John accepts Walter's bet. The girl says that since the bets have been accepted, she reveals the second dice to the participants. Walter rolls a 3, so his highest score is 3. However, John rolls another 1, making him the loser of this round. John can't believe his eyes, while Walter says that he didn't expect John to get a pair in the first round. However, John does not give up and says that since he got rid of his bad luck in the first round, he will continue to play further, expressing confidence that now everything will change. Unfortunately, confidence does not help John, and he loses time after time without taking a single victory. After 500 million lost, the girl announces that they are moving on to the final round. After rolling the dice, Walter Mo gets a 1 and John gets a 6. John is happy with the lucky turn of events, but Walter goes all in, saying that he will give John a chance to win back and win it all. The protagonist is shocked by Walter's behavior, mentally reasoning about why Walter is so hopeful that he will get a 6, which in this game means an automatic win. But realizing that there was no manipulation of the dice during all this time, he accepts the bet. John notes that if he had known what kind of person Walter was, he would never have sat down to play with him at the table, since Walter has a talent for absorbing luck. Walter rolls a 6, making him the automatic winner of this round and taking home John's entire fortune. Walter leaves, saying it was a fun competition, saying that they should meet again. He throws John a business card, telling him to find him if something more important than money comes into his life. The next evening, a corporate party is being held in the cafe, and John's colleagues are present. John himself sipped a drink from a bottle, sullenly, lost in thoughts about the lost money. A man approaches John and asks him why he looks so bad while at a corporate party. The man is the president of the company John works for, named Matt Doc. However, John pays no attention to Matt and continues to drink sullenly. Jeff jumps up from his seat, ingratiatingly trying to explain himself to the president. However, the president, smiling sweetly, tells Jeff that he doesn't see anything terrible and asks John to follow him. As soon as the two leave, the female employees begin to talk among themselves about John, saying that he is a little strange, and talking about how they heard about John going broke on some investment. Arabella listens to these conversations and expresses hope that everything will be okay with John, to which she is told that the company president was nicknamed the Smiling Buddha for his goodwill. Meanwhile, Matt is cursing John on the street, holding him by the tie and saying that the main character should know his place and not ruin the corporate party with a sour face. He adds that a worthless person like John can be replaced at any moment, despite the fact that he works hard. John muses that he really does have to toil for jerks like Matt to make a pittance, but is interrupted by a slap in the face. Matt says that he will give him 100,000 won for every slap, so John should be grateful to him for raising him, to which the protagonist restrains himself from wanting to break his arm, when suddenly he receives a new task. Suddenly, John, with a bright smile, sincerely thanks Matt for the slaps, calling it a real-life lesson. John takes the president's hand and asks to be honored to be near him and receive more of his wisdom. The president immediately softens and tells John that he agrees, demanding that he go back to the cafe where John will pour him a drink and they will go to the end. John smiles and agrees with the president, rereading the terms of his mission, which orders him to kidnap Matt for a huge reward. After some time, Matt Doc comes to, tied up in some garage. John tells Matt that he kidnapped him while checking his watch for the new mission conditions, which state that the president must be locked in a specific location and held there for 24 hours. John tells the company president, Matt, that he dragged him around and made all sorts of scenes. Matt demands that he be untied immediately and that he give him the phone, but John takes it out of his pocket and asks if this is the phone he's talking about. John says he went through his phone and found various things, which enrages Matt, who calls him a brat and demands that he be untied. He continues his hysteria, screaming that John shouldn't kidnap him and expect that nothing will happen to him for it. In response, John shows Matt his phone, which contains photos from a hidden camera installed in the company's women's restroom. John calls Matt a complete pervert, suggesting that he was the one who installed it, to which he only asks in confusion how he was able to access it. John only makes a mocking joke at Matt's expense, not revealing that the interim reward for the kidnapping was training in device hacking skills. John tells Matt that if he turns all this over to the police, very interesting things will happen. John says he now understands why he had to kidnap Matt, when suddenly his attention is drawn to a folder of files on his phone. John dives into the contents of the folder, going through the file names when he suddenly stops. John's face changes and he asks Matt who he thinks the company's employees are. Matt replies that all employees are creatures to him who don't know their place, and he just gives them a chance to achieve at least something in this life. John says that while every person has skeletons in their closet, for someone like Matt there will be no salvation. Matt smiles arrogantly, saying that John is committing crimes himself now, so his intimidation will be useless. John shuts Matt up by telling him that from now on he will give him 100,000 won for every slap he gives him, telling him to think of it as patience training. Matt loses his temper, yelling at the protagonist that if he dares to touch his hair, he will be in trouble. However, he doesn't have time to finish speaking, as John's slap catches him, easily sending him flying to the ground. John sits down next to Matt and asks him about the reasons why Matt thinks that if he has money, he can live like this. John picks up the company president, adding that even just living like everyone else is becoming very difficult, and thanks to creatures like Matt, it becomes almost unbearable. The protagonist hits the company president again, saying that he wants him to feel this injustice at least once in his life. Burning with fear and frustration, Matt Doc tries to squeeze out some kind of apology. However, suddenly a man bursts into the garage where John locked him, rejoicing that he has found his target. There is no trace of remorse left on the president's face, and he asks the man to help him, saying that John kidnapped him. The man and his accomplice, who has arrived, tell Matt to stay put and wait, while the device on his arm announces a new objective, saying that they need to save Matt. They tell John that they have nothing personal against him, and it's just a mission, to which he waves his hand understandingly, saying that he has no complaints either. The participants are surprised that John is acting too calmly, suspecting that something is wrong. However, in the blink of an eye, John closes the distance with one of the participants and incapacitates him with one blow. Without thinking twice, John grabs the next participant and knocks him out in a few seconds. John is quite showing off to himself, glad that his fighting skills have not diminished at all during his civilian life. Matt watches as John takes out successive groups of enemies and ponders how he can escape. However, suddenly John takes a knife taken from one of the defeated participants and heads towards Matt. John cuts the ropes, freeing Matt, saying that he noticed he was bored, so he came to cheer him up. After that, he takes Matt by the legs and starts spinning him around with all his might, laughing cheerfully. After spinning Matt around hard enough, he throws him into one of the still-standing contestants, knocking him out. Matt Doc can't stand the psychological stress of the fear and humiliation he's received and starts crying while looking at John. John tells Matt to stop crying because they still have an amazing 15 hours ahead of them, during which he will help him transform. Behind Angara, another pair of participants waits, noting that 5 teams have already entered there. One of the partners says that this only means that they need to abandon the mission. He justifies his decision by the fact that most likely there is a terribly strange and strong person inside, with whom it is simply impossible to come to an agreement. Meanwhile, John wakes up Matt, who is passed out from stress, and says that while he was sleeping, he thought about something. According to John, since he is taking charge of Matt's moral education, it is worth discussing the issue of his salary. John says that his salary should be 5 times higher than his current one, and demands that his position be changed to one that will allow him to earn the maximum with the minimum amount of work. He also adds that from now on, Matt Doc will be his dog until he raises him back to human. Meanwhile, the scene temporarily moves to a special regime prison, which only holds dangerous prisoners. A guard approaches prisoner number 3270's cell and asks him to hold out one more day. His device shows him his new mission, which is to free a first-degree criminal within 24 hours. The prisoner in this cell, out of boredom, beats his very strong head against the walls, leaving large holes. The guard's device adds that once he successfully completes the mission, a new game will begin. The next morning, Jeff walks into the office and notices a whole crowd of employees. Suddenly, his face is distorted by a grimace of incredible surprise and fear. In front of the staff, behind a new desk and a throne-like chair, sits John, who greets everyone politely. John says that a strange miracle happened and by order of the president, his position suddenly changed. After everyone leaves, John thinks about how these glasses have changed the way he makes money. Thanks to the completed mission and the ticket, he returned 500 million won to his account. However, his main mission to earn 1 billion remains unfulfilled, and there is only a little more than 28 hours left. John tells himself that he doesn't care what game or mission comes next, as long as it comes sooner. Meanwhile, in prison, the operator asks the guard for a report on how things are going. A guard answers him and says that he is on a bus with 10 especially dangerous prisoners, but there are no emergency situations. However, it turns out that the guard first cut his partner's throat so as not to leave any witnesses to his crimes. Having finished his report, he approaches the locked compartment where the prisoners are located and opens it with the keys. He throws the keys to the handcuffs to the prisoners, telling them that they can do whatever they want, but that they are unlikely to escape. He explains that once the game starts, hackers will likely take control of police CCTV cameras. The guard concludes that in any case, no one will be able to escape from prison. Meanwhile, all owners of the devices receive a task that requires them to hunt for escaped prisoners. The prisoners are released, along with the leader number 3270, whose reward is 500 million. The other prisoners address him by the name Hyung Nim and ask what they will all do. Hyun Nim suggests that they find the money that one of his friends buried on the prison grounds, after which they will all leave Korea. Participants receive the geolocation of prisoners and guess where these prisoners are trying to get to. One of the hunters finishes his preparations and orders the others to move out, otherwise they will not have time to catch enough victims. 4 hours after the start of the penalty game, one of the squads arrived at the location of the prisoners and began to catch the criminals. The catcher laughs at the victim, saying that for a criminal, his victim is rather weak and should live a righteous life. The catcher feels his friend's hand on his shoulder and turns around, saying that as long as they catch everyone one by one, the observers won't notice anything. However, the hand resting on the catcher's shoulder is merely the severed limb of his former friend, cut off by prisoner number 2804. The prisoner says that he also catches people, specifying that his target is freaks with red watches. The catcher tries to say something to the prisoner, but the latter quickly cuts off his hand and then finishes him off. Prisoner 2804 returns to Hyung-nim, saying that he has dealt with the local pests and throws his severed hands on the ground. 2804 asks Hyun-nim how many people are involved as he places his hands on the captive's head. Hyung-nim replies that he quickly got tired of killing hunters, so he stopped counting and then breaks the captive's neck. He turns around to face the pile of corpses and says he hasn't had this much fun in a long time. After this, he approaches the other prisoners who are digging the ground in search of money and tells them to dig faster. Otherwise, he will abandon those who do not find anything. Prisoner 2804 tells Hyun-nim that after checking the dead members, he was unable to determine which gang they belonged to. But he did find out that they had a bounty on their heads, and their location had been revealed. Hyun-nim asks prisoner 2804 how much they'll give for him. And upon receiving the answer, he's happy, saying that it's always a dream to get a bounty on your head. Not understanding Hyun-nim's joy, 2804 asks his accomplice how much money they have found so far. The prisoner replies that they found 3 bundles of 500 million each, and there are 3 more left. Prisoner 2804 mentally reasons that this is much more than he imagined, believing that he should just use Hyung-nim and escape. Meanwhile, another pair of participants watches them, surprised by their behavior. They then notice the unearthed money and a pile of dead participants, realizing that the prisoners are much more dangerous than they initially thought. The participants decide not to back down and play for high stakes, but one of them questions the correctness of their actions, saying that hunting people like cattle is strange. However, his thoughts are interrupted by his accomplice, who grabs him by the jacket and says that they are hunting not even people, but monsters. The leader of the participants suggests catching them from a distance, as this is the safest method, adding that under no circumstances should they be allowed to escape. Suddenly, John's voice is heard behind him, saying that they really can't let the prisoners escape. John emerges from the bushes to meet the frightened participants, saying that there is no point in being on guard all the time. Jonah says that he is just an office worker, causing confusion in the eyes of the participants. However, John says he has a great plan and will tell it to them if they are interested. After John tells about his plan, the faces of the participants freeze with bewilderment and incomprehension. The leader of the hunters points a crossbow at John and asks him why he thought they should be bait, adding that they are not some kind of weaklings. He warns that if John does not run away by the count of 3, he will shoot him, to which John calmly responds that he suggested the best way for everyone. The leader shoots at John, but he easily deflects the arrow with a precise blow from his machete. Catching a piece of the arrow in his hand, John says that the leader shouldn't have warned him exactly when he would shoot. John invites the participants to listen to him while he is still kind, and they unquestioningly agree. After some time, the participants approach the prisoners, who are looking for the last remaining bundles of money. The prisoners laugh at the fact that the participants came to them with bare hands and expressed a desire to bury them right there. After waiting for all the prisoners to see them, the participants take to their heels. Prisoner 2804 orders everyone to catch the escapee, and they set off in pursuit. The participants run away from the prisoners and go over John's plan in their heads, according to which they need to lure them to a designated location. The hunting party arrives at the designated location, but the prisoners immediately come running after them. The prisoners surround the hunters, complaining that there are no holes to bury them in. One of the prisoners runs towards the leader of the hunters, swinging a shovel to finish him off with one blow. However, at the last moment, a well-aimed throw of the axe deflects the blow, knocking the shovel out of the prisoner's hands. John lights some twigs on fire and throws them into the grass surrounding the house, creating a ring of flame. When the prisoners ask who he is, he replies that all they need to know is that none of them will escape from here. John adds that it would be easier for them if they stood still and just let them get beaten up, adding that they should all hand over the money. The prisoners begin to panic, but the leader picks up a shovel, telling them not to be afraid because there is only one John. However, as soon as he finishes speaking, John knocks him out with a powerful kick, sending him skidding across the ground. John lands on his feet, telling the prisoners that they can now panic, which causes them to lash out in rage. However, John easily knocks out and disarms the attackers. John knocks the knife out of the hand of one of the attackers with a strong blow, then picks it up and deals him several well-aimed blows. The prisoner bleeds out and falls unconscious, leaving the last survivor alone with John. Without wasting a second to think, John lunges at the last prisoner and quickly knocks him out cold by slamming him into the ground. The hunters watch with undisguised surprise as John single-handedly defeats an entire squad of enemies. According to the leader of a game where his own life is at stake, this man is a real hunter. John rejoices over the 400 million won reward that has arrived, while prisoner 2804 arrives at the battle site asking who is playing with fire here. The prisoner points a knife at John, who is informed that account 2804 has 18 charges, including murder, arson, and kidnapping, adding that the reward for him is 300 million. John asks 2804 if he plans to avenge his comrades. Prisoner 2804 says he came to tell John to finish the job if he started it, then finishes off his accomplice with a knife. The prisoner calls John an amateur and asks if he is willing to get some new holes in his body, to which he agrees. The prisoner attacks John, trying to stab him with a knife, but John easily dodges him. However, 2804's pressure doesn't let up, and he continues to strike with both hands, yet never once hitting John. Realizing that he is facing a formidable opponent who is also ambidextrous, John stops abruptly and asks him to wait 1 second. John quickly steps back a little, starting to dig through various gardening supplies. John takes out a pair of hoes and assumes a praying mantis stance, saying that he hasn't practiced with them in a while. The prisoner recalls how everyone used to bully him, but everything changed as soon as he took out a knife. According to him, even those who threatened to beat him begged for forgiveness as soon as he cut them a few times. He notes that it was a lot of fun for him to watch people fear him and grovel before him. However, now, under pressure from John, the prisoner for the first time could not understand what to do. Prisoner 2804 anxiously wonders if John is cornering him. He gets angry, making a wide swing, trying to hit John, but he easily dodges. John continues to laugh at him, throwing him off balance and causing him to make more and more mistakes. The prisoner completely loses his guard and attacks, telling John that he has no right to humiliate him. However, John makes a lightning-fast dash, delivering several dozen blows per second to the prisoner, incapacitating him. John turns to the prisoner, telling him that he who does not know his place cannot be strong. After some time, John happily walks with his partners, singing a song about how joyful it will be for them to look for 500 million. Confused by the strange songs, the leader of the hunters sheepishly asks John if they can leave already. John asks the others, confused, why they are leaving if there is still one left, to which they answer that the last criminal is a very dangerous man who killed 13 people with his bare hands. Suddenly, Hyunim appears behind them like a huge rock, leaving everyone except John in shock and awe. Hyunim suggests skipping the introduction and delivers a powerful blow to John. However, John blocks the punch and counters with an uppercut straight to Hyunim's jaw. Hyunim and John pause for a moment and are surprised that they were able to withstand each other's blows. The protagonist and Hyunim suspect that the next battle will be very interesting. John tries to defeat Hyunim with his speed, dodging his attacks. Hyunim, meanwhile, doesn't take much damage from John's attacks thanks to the strength of his head. The prisoner decides that his best option is to try to capture John, and he tries to catch the nimble fighter in a mistake. A few seconds later, he takes his chance and lunges forward at John, grabbing him. After Hyunim grabs John, he squeezes him hard, trying to break his bones. Hyunim asks John if he understands that he is about to die and squeezes him further. However, in a stressful situation, John gets a second wind, pumping his body with endorphins and adrenaline. Gathering all his will and new strength, John grabs Hyunim's face and forces him to release his grip. John tells him that he has been holding back his powers for a long time, but now that he is facing a strong opponent, he may not hold back. He then slams Hyunim's head into the ground with force, dealing a crushing blow. After knocking out Hyunim, John receives the final reward of 500 million won, and the hunt for the criminals is declared over. The hunters watch in horror as John defeats such a power category and cannot believe their eyes. One of them whispers that they should secretly take the money buried by the prisoners, which John doesn't know about yet. The hunters approach John and say that they will go clean up the hunting ground. John is not against this arrangement, when suddenly a dart flies into his neck. A split second later, the darts also hit the hunters, and they recoil to the sides. Realizing that it is a paralytic poison, John tries to scan the attackers, his eyes darting around the area. A man in a white mask with an omega symbol emerges from the forest, and an attempt to scan him results in access denied. Omega is also surrounded by henchmen who look like debt collectors from a construction site. John tries to ask Omega who he is, but the poison begins to take effect and his eyes slowly close. Unable to resist the power of the poison, John falls to the ground unconscious. John finds himself in a burning building that looks like a correctional facility. John tries to escape from the burning building, but suddenly hears strange voices asking him questions. John turns around to see the dead children looking at him through the bars, asking him why he ran away alone. John suddenly jumps up and finds himself in his apartment on the bed. The protagonist remembers everything that happened, and the face of the defeated Hyunim and that Omega mask pops up in his head. John listens to the television, which is broadcasting news that a fire has broken out in a convoy bus for prisoners sentenced to death. John checks his balance and mission status and finds that his balance is $1.7 billion. John exhales, placing his hand on his neck, believing that everything ended without problems. Suddenly, he feels a strange device on his neck, like a small bomb. John is given a new mission, according to which he needs to complete 5 consecutive tasks, the first of which is to establish contact with employee A. On a sunny morning, Jeff stands near his workplace and sips coffee, complaining that he is tired of buying it himself every day. Suddenly, he notices John rushing at top speed, who only manages to shout at Jeff to move aside. John runs past Jeff, knocking his coffee cup out of his hands and rushing to the upper floors of the building. Arabella sits at her desk and goes through her tasks while reading reports. Suddenly, John's face, out of breath and distorted with a slight hint of madness, appears in front of her and greets her. Arabella jumps up from her seat in surprise, carefully examining John. Having calmed down a little, she asks John what happened and why he is so out of breath, to which John replies that he has a very important mission. Arabella asks John if this task is related to her, while he is given a mission that requires him to spend 6 hours with Arabella. John says he recently changed his position and job, adding that she probably needs a break from overworking. The protagonist concludes that today, Arabella can properly relax and talk with him, and assistant Jeff will do everything for her. John notices Jeff and looks at him madly, asking him if he will help Arabella. Scared to death, Jeff salutes, saying he'll do it without any problems. John adds that he will pay for the vacation expenses with the card he received from his boss, keeping quiet about the fact that he actually stole it. Arabella is delighted by this arrangement, asking if she can take a vacation at any time, to which John replies that for this she needs to be near him. Arabella and John are having a great day doing various activities, such as going to the movies, having a picnic, or bowling. And John starts to think that it's a lot like a date. John and Arabella finish their day at the restaurant and she tells him that she had a lot of fun today. Arabella apologizes for being noisy, admitting that she is becoming increasingly tired from overwork. She says that she is still very grateful to John for everything, and says that she wants to confess something to him. Looking up at John, she sees that he has put 2 forks in his mouth, saying that he is a mustachioed walrus. Arabella laughs heartily, asking John if he is as drunk as she is. John is on a mission to make Arabella laugh and is glad that she is a little tipsy, otherwise it would be much more difficult. A waiter comes up to them and brings them a plate covered with a lid, saying that their last dish is ready. He thanks John and Arabella for visiting the restaurant, saying that he has prepared a small gift for them, removing the lid and showing John that inside are the very same watches of the participants. Arabella looks at the device, mistaking it for a smartwatch, and John receives a task to get Arabella to join the game and put the device on her. Arabella happily asks if they are getting watches, while John moves closer to the waiter and asks him who he is. The butler looks at John lifelessly, and he understands that someone is clearly controlling him. Arabella looks at John a little confused, asking him if everything is okay. John is lost in thought, realizing that he was wrong in thinking that he could always win, because he did not expect that such dilemmas would be put before him. John decides not to tell Arabella anything, and tells her that nothing serious happened, adding that he will walk her home. Arriving at her home, Arabella peacefully falls asleep, and John looks at her, realizing that she is defenseless and it would be easy for him to put the device on her. John tells himself that all he believes in this world is money, adding that her life is far less important than his own, but he still cannot bring himself to do such a mean thing. Suddenly, Omega contacts John through the glasses, telling him that no one will know about his actions. He adds that a person does everything to survive, so John should not worry. According to Omega, John is special but ultimately just one of the participants, and the participants are very easy to control, since man is the most selfish animal. John mockingly asks Omega if he really thinks he knows everything about him, adding that in his opinion he has no idea who John is. John tells Omega that he has failed him, explaining that when he is failed he turns everything upside down. Omega asks John if he is sure he is capable of such a thing, to which the protagonist takes a knife and rips the bomb out of his neck. John tells Omega that they thought they could control him with money, but in reality it was he who was using it. Omega is interested in how far John can go, calling several drones to the area where John is located. The drones set fire to the villa across from John, and Omega tells him that there are 5 people in it. Omega tells John that he must save the unfortunate people from this fire, but there is a catch. John receives a new mission to kill Arabella with a hefty reward of 300 million won. The same task, along with Arabella's location, comes to several other participants. Omega presents John with a dilemma of saving strangers from a fire, or saving his colleague who has become the target of the participants. John wisely decides to call the fire department and takes out his smartphone. Omega, having connected to him, reports that this is, of course, forbidden, saying that he has taken control of all systems, telling John that he must choose one of the two. John quickly considers his options and starts yelling at the top of his lungs that there is a fire in the house, waking up all the residents. All the residents of the house wake up and run outside, and along with them, the peacefully sleeping Arabella comes to her senses. John quickly throws a thick cloth over Arabella to prevent her from getting burned. After wrapping Arabella up, John throws her over his shoulder and carries her out of the building and onto the street. John puts her down on the ground, saying that, unfortunately, he didn't bring a work phone. John asks Arabella to cover herself with a blanket and wait here, saying that he will be back soon. Arabella anxiously asks John where he is going, expressing the hope that he will not return to the scene of the fire. John hesitates a little and tells her that when he was a child, there was a fire in the place where he lived. According to John, he was weak and very scared at the time, so he couldn't do anything. After that day, John made a decision that he would never abandon an innocent person in trouble. John enters the burning building and Arabella watches him anxiously, while onlookers wonder why he went there. A few seconds later, people take out their phones and start filming the burning building. John emerges from the smoke a few minutes later, pulling 4 people out of the fire. Arabella lays out her blanket and John places the survivors on it, asking for help as he returns to the burning building. John is informed that the participant is approaching Arabella and will be within a 5-meter radius in a minute. John decides that he will have time to save everyone and, speeding up, bursts into the building. Finding the last apartment with a survivor, he immediately flies into it, approaching the unfortunate man. However, Omega contacts John again, saying that if he saves the man, he will write off $1 billion from his account, and if he leaves him to die, he will add it. Omega asks John what he will do as the protagonist stands over the survivor with a grim look. Arabella stands by the burning building, holding her hands in excitement, wondering why John won't come out. Suddenly, a man approaches her and asks her if she lives in room 204 in Haru's villa. Arabella is surprised by this question and asks the stranger if he knows her, to which he receives an affirmative answer. The stranger grabs Arabella by the arm and pulls out a knife, ordering her to shut up and follow him. He adds that she better be a good girl, when suddenly something heavy lands on the car behind him. The smoke clears and John appears in front of Arabella and the contestant, telling the stranger that he will kill him if he touches Arabella. The contestant asks John if he is the same as him, suspecting that he wants to steal his money. The participant shouts that this money will belong to him and pulls Arabella onto his knife. However, John throws his boot accurately and blocks the blow to Arabella. From the paralyzing horror and stress, Arabella falls to her knees, unable to move. The stranger makes a second attempt to kill Arabella and stabs her hard with a knife. However, John manages to cover Arabella in time, taking the knife blow. He repeats the words that he will kill him if he touches Arabella with even a finger. John decides not to stand on ceremony and delivers a powerful headbutt to the stranger, knocking him out. The main character rejoices in his victory, but immediately realizes that he has inhaled carbon monoxide and his strength is beginning to leave him. John falls unconscious on the pavement and Arabella, having recovered from the shock, approaches him. She sits down next to him and asks him to wake up, while a mysterious figure approaches our heroes. A level 31 participant named Gyllenhaal speaks on the phone and reports finding an object, asking whether to take it with him or dispose of it. John is awakened from a deep sleep by the loud cries of a child for help. John quickly jumps up, trying to understand what is happening and where he is. John notices that he is in a small room in which a tall man is approaching the child in a threatening manner. A child screams for help and a man demands that he shut up and be a good boy. In the blink of an eye, John catches up with the man and jumps on him, intending to punch him in the face. However, despite the precision and speed of the blow, the man manages to intercept it and block it. He asks John why he is striking so suddenly, to which John responds by ordering him to move away from the child. They are interrupted by Walter, sitting quietly in the room, holding a gun. Walter reports that by their thoughtless actions they are digging their own grave. John notices that the child, who is shaking with fear, has a bracelet on his wrist. John calls Walter and the man-bastards and demands that they let him go, to which they respond that it is none of his business. Walter says that John appeared out of nowhere and saves a strange child, asking him why he is doing it. John says the child was asking for help and adds that Walter and his accomplice look a lot like the criminals. Walter chuckles at this characterization and says that they will commit crimes by raising a gun. John quickly covers the child with his body, hoping that the bullet will not pierce through him. Walter doesn't hesitate to pull the trigger, but the gun shoots out a stream of water. John tries to figure out what the hell is going on, and the kid behind him starts laughing heartily. The child tells John that he has fallen for his game, and John grabs him with both hands. Angry at being manipulated, John asks the child if he is a bully. John begins to quickly spin the child back and forth, causing him to scream for help again. The man tells Walter that John is not so bad, to which he readily agrees. Walter apologizes for the deception, saying it was a test of sorts, adding that they are in their custody of the child. Walter says that they are a group to liberate the game's participants, adding that he will be brief as it would take too long to explain fully. He says that his colleague, who was with him yesterday, is safely in hospital, but due to severe shock, she does not remember what happened. Walter shows John a selfie of his assistant, who is guarding Arabella's safety in the hospital. He also points to the man, saying that it was he who saved John and Arabella, introducing him as Gyllenhaal. John thanks Walter for saving him, adding that it was hardly done for nothing. Walter tells John that he has become a ranker and his fortune will soon exceed 2 billion. He adds that if he earns more and levels up, other forces or rankers may target him. Walter adds that in this case, a repetition of tests that he will not be able to cope with alone, like yesterday, is guaranteed. John agrees to this, mentally worrying that Arabella was in danger because of him, realizing that if it happens again, fortune may not be so kind to him. Walter tells John that he should join our group and transfer 800 million, which will later be returned to his account. He explains that this is necessary to ensure that they are pursuing a common goal. John calls Walter a cheater, to which Walter responds with a mocking denial, adding that John first needs to complete a team mission with one of their group members, after which the first half will be returned to his account. Walter says that John will get the rest of the money later, clarifying that the protagonist was not going to quit the game anyway, and this is not a losing proposition. Sometime later, John is sitting at the bar and thinking about Walter's offer. John decides to check his account and notices that he has not received his reward for completed missions. The reward is a coupon for a random item, and John decides to check his phone where he notices a message from Omega, stating that he will not have any personal missions for a while. John understands that in this system his entire fortune can disappear at any moment, and it is almost impossible to cash out this money, so he needs to enjoy it while he can. John buys himself a 400,001 lunch and enjoys the omakase he used to only drool over. The protagonist is filled with satisfaction, admitting to himself that they taste exactly as he imagined them. John recalls how he once lived in poverty and really wanted a rich life, promising himself that now he would enjoy it to the fullest. After 4 days, John decides to conduct a team mission and comes to the test site, inspecting the participants. John is deep in thought about finding himself a nice apartment after he finishes here, when he suddenly hears a reproach for being late. John suspects that his playmate said this and turns his head to find that his partner is the same boy. John sadly asks the boy how old he is, to which he admits that he is only 15. The other participants look at this scene mockingly, saying that when the game starts, they will need to focus on this couple. John mentally rages at being deceived, admitting that he expected Gyllenhaal to be present instead of the schoolboy. The child teases John, saying that he doesn't look very strong, adding that John is also scary. John tells the boy that he doesn't like him either, to which he timidly admits that he must win this game at all costs. John exhales and places his hand on the boy's head, telling him to trust him, adding that he can definitely protect one little one. After some time, the participants go out into the field and wait for the command to start the game. A loudspeaker on a pole announces that the game will be King Defense, in which a king is chosen at random from each pair and must be protected at any cost until there are only 2 pairs of participants left. John looks back at the boy and he shows him that he has become king. The heroes are surrounded by other participants preparing for the countdown to end. Once the countdown is over, one of the pairs of participants rushes at the child. John quickly manages to grab the schoolboy and put him on his neck, making it easier for himself to control the king. The participants praise John for his speed, adding that he just revealed to everyone that the boy is the king. One of the participants adds that if he fights alone, he will quickly die. The boy is frightened by the threats and digs his hands into John's hair, causing him to cringe in pain. The child begins to panic and ask what they should do, to which John shouts at him to sit still and not disturb him. One of the participants decides to end this by preparing to attack John and the child. Suddenly, he notices that the 2 green-haired participants are watching the events indifferently and making no attempt to attack John. A couple of the participants guess that they want to stab them in the back and approach them, saying that this will not work, adding that first they need to eliminate John and the little one. The child touches John's face, telling him that they have been distracted, to which he replies that he can see it himself. Meanwhile, another pair of participants carefully sneak up behind John. John asks the child to put weight on both feet and stand up, to which he asks why this is necessary. Suddenly, participants attack them from both sides, trying to catch the child on John's neck. John throws the child up into the air and then jumps up himself, kicking both attackers at the same time. John knocks out the contestants with one blow and decides to show off by theatrically catching a falling child. John puts the child down, saying he will deal with the others and come back. The child tries to figure out what kind of person John is when he turns around at the loud scream of one of the participants. One of the green-haired participants put his opponent on his knees and presses his eyes with his fingers. In response to pleas not to do this, he only coldly admits that he finds it fun, so he won't stop. After gouging out his opponent's eyes, the green-haired participant shakes off his hand and hears the screams of the other opponent. His accomplice, unlike the eyes, decided to bite off his opponent's nose. After hearing the screams of pain, he knees his opponent in the face, knocking him out. John and the child are surprised that complete psychos remain against them. The loudspeaker announces that the first game has been successfully completed, adding that the second game begins in 10 minutes at a nearby gym. Participants come to the gym and prepare for a new challenge. John asks the child why he is so eager to participate in this game, to which he replies that he has to win. Suddenly, a stranger enters the room, saying that he has been entrusted with hosting the second game. A man wearing a strange mask on his face comes into the light and reveals himself to be a puppet. He slowly walks to the center of the room, congratulating the winners of the first game and emphasizing that he thought it would take longer. The host decides to get straight to the point and announces the start of the second game. The second game is a one-touch random card challenge. The puppet announces the rules of the game, which state that each turn the team gets one card with a body part to hit the opponent with and one card with a body part to take the hit with. The host adds that the king can give orders to his partner, adding that if the king's orders are not followed, the participant is immediately considered a violator and is excluded. John thinks that these rules are too harsh and tries to stop the game, but the boy stops him. The boy says that he is still the king, so they cannot stop. John asks the child if he is going to order him to take the hits for himself. The child, with a heavy heart, says that if it will help him win, then he will do it too. John raises his hand to the child and he cowers in fear and closes his eyes. John says he doesn't know what drives the child, asking why the child's face looks like his world has collapsed. The child remembers his sister, who calls him by his name, Charles, and says that she is fine. In his memory, his sister hugs him, asking him if he is hurt. The sister says that she found a job that will allow her to pay off her debts in 2 years and protect him. Charles concludes that his sister never returned, so he has to find her. John replies that Charles does not have to order him around, because adults should always protect children. According to the rules of the game, anyone can be an attacker or a defender, and they can switch places at any time. The game begins, and the first card dealt is a fist for the attacking team and the upper body for the defending team. The attacker hits John with a powerful blow, causing significant damage to his internal organs. John clutches his liver, noting that his opponent definitely knows where to hit. The roles are reversed and John gets the eye attack card, and the defender gets the ear protection area, causing John to decide to skip his attack. At the next role change, based on the cards, the attacker hits John in the forehead with his elbow. In the following series of role changes, John never got a card that allowed him to make an attack, so he missed his attacks one after another. John barely keeps control of himself from the injustice and hopes that he will have the opportunity to hit his opponent at least once. The green-haired king approaches the attacker and asks him if he is hitting him properly, switching roles with him. John realizes that his body is slowly starting to fail, noting that on top of everything else, his wounds have opened up. Suddenly, Charles says that he is also switching places with John, causing him shock. Charles replies that he is going to check something and asks John to trust him. The attacker looks at Charles, asking him about the fact that he apparently hasn't been hit yet. As the round begins, he lands a powerful knee to Charles's chest. Charles, in intense pain, vomits and empties his stomach as the leader opens the strike area for the second team. According to the cards, Charles's team must strike the forehead with the middle finger. Charles is indignant at this failure, but John says that they are finally lucky and approaches the opponent. John delivers a powerful flick that causes his opponent to stagger back, blood spurting from both nostrils. The protagonist falls into ecstasy from the realization that he was finally able to hit his hated opponents. The opponent tries to come to his senses and does not believe that he was hit with such force with one finger. The next card for the green-haired team is a failure, so they pass their turn. The game changes and John gets normal cards, which he uses with great pleasure, knocking the spirit out of his opponent. The green team's defender asks his ally to switch places with him. However, he orders him to continue to take attacks, saying that he will only attack. Charles understands and prepares himself for the fact that the next attack card may be successful for the enemy team and prepares to withstand it at any cost. The opposing team gets a kick to the stomach, and a crushing force is unleashed on Charles. However, gathering all his determination into a fist, he rises to his feet and remains conscious. The green-haired team's defender yells at Charles, demanding that he give up already so that he doesn't get hit anymore. John gets punched in the nose and thanks Lady Luck for the chance. Swinging with all his might, he hits the defender, causing him to fly back at high speed. The defender crashes into the king, allowing John to knock out two with one blow. John looks at the two unconscious opponents and asks the host if he broke the rules. The presenter, however, calmly replies that he does not see any problems here. Charles congratulates John on his victory, not believing that they actually won. Charles explains that he designed the effectiveness of attack cards to depend on how many hits the king took. John praises Charles for his resourcefulness, saying that he is a good guy in any case. However, Charles' face suddenly changes, saying that it looks like the game isn't over yet, noting that they haven't received any reward. The host announces the final game, called Rebellion and Suppression. According to the rules, the last two players are no longer a team and play the individual roles of king and villager, whose goals are to defeat or force the opponent to surrender. Charles doesn't believe they have to kill each other and says there must be another way. However, John interrupts his reasoning by giving him a hard slap. He tells Charles to stop talking like a weakling and accept the reality that he will have to fight him. John adds that, among other things, he is a very bad person. Charles understands that this is an initially unequal battle, which he would not win even if he were armed, but he will have no other chance. John goads Charles, saying that his sister must not have been that dear to him if he was acting so insecure. Charles doesn't understand what John means, to which the protagonist reminds him that he said he would save his sister, but now his true intentions are visible. John adds that his sister is probably still having a hard time coping with everything that is thrown at her for his sake, but he is still in no hurry to help her. John suggests that his sister may already be dead, to which Charles, in tears, yells at him and throws punches. John easily dodges Charles's attack, saying that he is too proud to fight a child. The protagonist tells the child that if Charles can hit him once, he will give up. Charles rushes to attack, and John mentally reflects on how the current world is a cruel place. John trips Charles up, continuing to reflect on how desire alone or desperation alone will not achieve anything. From the point of view of the main character, the only thing that can save loved ones or himself is strength or money. John concludes that power and money can either be the fruit of labor or the result of desperation. Charles lunges at John again and manages to land one blow on him. John smiles as he looks at Charles and tells the host that he gives up. The host announces that the resident has surrendered, declaring Charles the winner. Sometime later, in a safe place, Gyllenhaal treats Charles's wounds. Gyllenhaal asks Charles how much money he received as a reward, to which he replies that his prize was 700 million. John lost 200 million won, so he's not in the best mood. Walter asks John if he lost the last game on purpose, to which he does not give a specific answer. Walter thanks John for his actions, saying that thanks to him, he will soon be free. John asks Walter if Charles is buying his freedom for this, to which Walter replies that he already had the money for it, but was given an additional condition. Based on this condition, Charles had to take first place in this game, or he would not see freedom. Walter concludes that Charles ended up earning 700 million in freedom. But this is all some kind of terrible joke, since some people have to go through additional tests, while others gain freedom immediately. According to him, in the end, everything is in the hands of the organizer, who has incredible hacking abilities capable of paralyzing the entire national system. However, Walter believes that John should never forget that today he saved someone from this hell. He also asks John how he can give him 400 million, offering several options including a transfer to an account, cash, or a gold bar. John starts to drool, thinking that the gold bars could be just like in the TV series and movies. Walter lays out 5 shining gold bars worth 80 million in front of him. John is over the moon, delighted that the gold looks much better than he imagined. Gyllenhaal tells Charles that John loves money too much, to which Charles replies that he thinks he's cool. However, as Charles notes, sometimes John behaves in a rather strange way. John turns to Charles and tells him that he is a great guy. He adds that if they don't help him find his sister, he can call and John will definitely help him. After a while, Gyllenhaal leads Charles away, and John watches them go, waving to the boy. Walter asks John again if he wants to join them, to which he replies that he is still greedy for money. Walter chuckles and leaves, saying that he will still come to us someday, and then they will talk again. But John wishes him luck, looking after him. 6 days later, John drives up to a luxury hotel in an expensive car. During this time, John managed to change his suit and image, flashing an expensive watch. John sits down at the bar, enjoying the pleasant jazz and thinking about the fact that he still has 1.4 billion won left in his account. According to John's calculations, the value of the gold is 400 million won, and the value of the car and watch stolen from the boss is another 300 million. Thus, John understands that his total wealth is about 2.1 billion won. However, his thoughts are interrupted by a beautiful girl he met a couple of days ago. John reflects that she is the first high society person he has met, but their communication has been much better than I thought. The protagonist notes that in addition to her interest in culture and sociability, he was very attracted to her sincere smile. The girl looks at him, smiling sweetly, and asks him why he doesn't give in to her temptations. John turns nervously to her and asks her what she meant, to which she only smiles, believing that he simply did not understand her. The girl grabs John by the tie and moves a little closer to him, saying that she is too drunk to walk home alone. Rather than resist her request to walk her home, John takes a walk with her and marvels at the luxury of the local buildings. He looks at the house, realizing that one apartment costs no less than 1 billion, and asks her if she lives in it, to which she answers in the affirmative. Suddenly, a heavy rain falls on the couple, leaving them completely drenched. The girl takes John by the sleeve, saying that he can stay with her until the rain stops. A few minutes later, John unexpectedly finds himself lying on a soft bed. His companion playfully climbs on top of him, to which John tells her that she is a little drunk. The girl looks at him, then giggles and says that she's completely sober and asks him to take off his glasses. John intercepts the girl's hand and moves the girl onto the bed, hovering over her. The girl looks at him with a little surprise, after which she breaks into a smile, saying that she didn't expect such pressure from him. John looks at his companion and asks her to stop fooling around. The girl, however, closes her eyes and whispers to him to forget about everything, starting to cry quietly, after which she quickly falls asleep. After that day, this girl started calling John often, and he really became interested in her. John admits to himself that he used to go to work to re-educate his boss, watching all sorts of nonsense at work and not doing much of anything. However, now after work he began to go on dates with this girl often. John truly believes that this time was truly amazing. However, as John saw more of her, he continued to find more and more reasons why they should distance themselves. John decides that tonight will be his last, but his companion suddenly offers him a relationship. Despite being shocked by these words, John refuses with sadness in his heart. His companion does not understand why he refuses the offer of a beautiful, attractive, and rich girl, but John secretly believes that because of him, she could get into trouble. John thanks her for all the time they spent together and leaves, sadly thinking that with him, this beautiful girl's life will turn into hell. Suddenly, he hears the painfully familiar sound of that same device behind him. John turns around to see his companion's choker, informing him that her mission has failed. According to the device, she was tasked with being in a relationship with John for 10 days without being noticed. The girl looks at John, saying that she is as special a player as he is. She asks John if he is shocked that he is not the only one of his kind, suggesting that he is still a newbie. The device gives the girl her next mission, which is to kill John. John has time to think that he shouldn't have refused this girl, when suddenly a knife is thrown at him at great speed, which he miraculously dodges. The girl takes out her throwing knives, pleasantly surprised that John dodged her throw, after which the system introduces him to his recent companion named Jane. John decides not to fight Jane in the park and flees the battlefield at high speed. While running away from Jane, he accesses his device, requesting an exchange of a random item. Jane goes into the woods to find John, saying that he should have told her earlier about his training. She openly says that she really needs a strong man, and if it turns out that John is stronger than her, then she will really like him. Hearing suspicious sounds, Jane throws a fan of throwing knives into the bushes, but there is no one there. Suddenly, John approaches Jane and throws his jacket at her to distract her attention. Jane instantly cuts open the jacket and attacks John, but he intercepts her knife with his new gloves. John steps back a little and asks Jane what she will do if he turns out to be stronger. After this, he turns on another function of his gloves, which is the ability to use electric shock. Jane is very surprised by what a useful gadget John got himself, while he asks her if she was faking her feelings. Jane asks him why he is asking this, since everything is already obvious. Shedding a stingy tear, John says that for playing with a man's feelings, Jane will be punished with 50,000 volts. Jane admits that she is a little impressed by John's skills and gadgets. However, she adds that his toys will be of no use if he can't catch her. Jane vanishes into thin air, and John tries to listen to where she will attack next. Jane prepares to attack and says that in a game where everyone's lives are at stake, she is the main killer. Jane reveals that she grew up as a hitman who never failed a single hit, and earned herself the alias Licorice, after the flower that symbolizes death. John, however, manages to react and intercepts all the knives thrown at him. He smirks and throws the knives back, hitting the tree Jane is next to. John says there is no point in these transfers and asks her if she intends to continue.